So I think that we can start since we have a lot of speakers today, and one of them is going to be pretty soon here, and then he's going to be talking about his experience in the topic. But before that, we have two, let's say, like two,
our Brazilian connection, right? Our Brazilian connection.
As well. Say it again.
Oh, no, the Brazilian connection. It's just that these two girls here, these two ladies, have worked with Ramon back there in Albany in New York, and they will also tell us a little bit about what they did there and the opportunities that Brazilian researchers have contacting researchers in other countries and the experience they had. Hopefully, that Bia will have to tell us a little bit about the time that she spent. She even got to write a paper together with Ramon and Teresa that are some of the, let's say, are the people that are leading this field in the United States these days, right?
So today we're going to talk about digital government success with Ramon Gil-Garcia and Macadar and Beatriz Lanza. And so regarding the schedule for our seminars, we just crossed the half of the way, let's say. And this is going to be the 80th seminar that we have here in the Research Seminar and Information Systems.
21 kilometers already gone, right? Only half a marathon ahead of us.
Exactly. So we are half done, and we have let's say 5 more. And I would just say what Alexandre said last week, that you should not miss the last one, because it's going to be a very good seminar for you guys and for all the audience. We prepared a very special guest, and we are going to keep this information until the 20th week. So at that time, we're going to say who is the speaker, Alexandre?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that we are only announcing the last one, because as we're not going to tell you who he or she is, I will not give a clue about that. By now, we are only announcing that so that you don't miss that. Of course, all of the others that come before are the researchers that are doing our field, are doing things in our field right now. And in fact, you will see we'll have, for the next few weeks, we'll have people, two participants from Canada, Jerry Grant, and then Zandra Balbino. And then we'll have someone from Tennessee, Michael Erskine, and then from Germany, Adam Videra. And that closing session is the session where we'll have our special guest and sum up all that we have said here. He will not have seen anything of that we did here, but he's been doing this for more than 40 years. So, and he has influenced, I'm sure, all of those other speakers that came here and will still come here before he does. Oh, I should say he or she, but I guess I've already, it's a man.
So, that's it. You should not miss the last.
Eliminated half the population of Earth, right?
Okay, so just going forward, we have the housekeeping announcements. We have, as we say in every seminar, you feel free to invite your friends, colleagues, and yes, everybody that your family, if you want, to come here and see the seminars. We are doing this every week since the beginning of since the middle of December, and feel free to invite your friends to come here and join us. Take part on this, engage in the discussions, take part on the Moodle. So we have some stuff happening on Moodle as well. So feel free to do it. We also have a WhatsApp group for not only for Alexandre put last minute information, but let's say that's more for engaging, discussing. We try to use this in the beginning for discussions, and we did this sometimes. But we have to confess that we have to use more WhatsApp for the discussions between the students. And as Alexandre keeps saying, we have this collaborative learning, which we should explore a little bit more through the WhatsApp, and we promise that we're going to think a little bit more on this. But also feel free to invite our friends to get into the WhatsApp group. There are a lot of stuff happening there, and it's going to be a very nice opportunity also to, build this community and create, let's say, this community a little bit more, okay? For the students who are taking teaching credits for the master, for the graduate program, you also have to prepare for the lessons, for the seminars, sorry. So there are some videos there are some recommended papers that you have to read or that you have to use for getting prepared for talk every week. And we also have some tests over there. So many of you are doing that. And so you have to be doing that for until the last week. Okay, so you should be doing that for more time. And let's say.
And for the researchers and people that do not have that are not doing this for credits, there's still a lot of interesting stuff there in our Moodle. It's very easy to, you just have to use this bit.do/r, capital letter ESIS, capital letters again, and includes a code there that, which I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you get again access to all the materials that we are sharing with the students, but that may be interesting also for others. You know, many of the speakers, they give us either papers that they suggestions of papers that they believe that people could read that deal with the same topic. So feel free to get in there. It's not only for the students. Whoever wants to get into that Moodle, please feel free to do it.
Yep. Yeah. So on the next bullet point, we have the certificates for those who wants to take the certificates. You should fulfill the form. So the link is over there. But as we do every week, we can post on the chat. So you just have to click there, include your details, and then Alexandre is going to be sending the certificates at the end of the day. Just kidding.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter for me if I'm sending the certificate to 30 or to 70 people. So you know, it's sort of automatic. It's not just pressing a button. It takes me a little more than that, but it's still, I mean, doing it for 30 or doing it for 70 is no problem at all. So feel free to include your names there, and you'll get a certificate for the participation in this seminar. Right?
Yeah. So one thing that we have to highlight is that you have to do this while we are doing the seminar. Okay. So on real time. So if you're going to be do this after the seminar, maybe you will not be considered. Okay. Because
no, I will not be checking who did that through YouTube later, right? No. Exactly. I'm not be doing certificates forever. It's just for today.
Exactly. Okay, so all sections, they are video recorded, and we are including on Lakaistube. For those who doesn't know where is that or which one's that, you just have to type here on the search Lakaistube, and you're going to find the Lakaistube, and you're going to find all the videos that we have from the beginning of the seminar. Also, another videos that the Lakais have produced during his life. Okay, so you just feel free to access them. We have video from coronavirus pandemic, which was 1 month ago. We have a lot of views, as Alexandre said, 159 views for Stacy Talk and 189 for Netcock last week. So a lot of people are engaging, and yeah, so feel free to access them and see the videos and share with your colleagues and so forth. Yeah, so the last questions that we changed, the way how we are doing the questions, we also recommended you to keep engaging on the chat, so you can post your comments on the chat, but questions for the speakers, you should post on Mentimeter. We're going to post the code in a few minutes. And yeah, so by doing that, we can organize a little bit what is the question that should be asked for the speakers. And also, we guarantee that we are not missing any question. Okay, so that's the reason why we decided to move to Mentimeter, as we are doing the last, I think, last 4 or 5 weeks. Okay. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to invite Mahi and Beatriz for starting their talk. Feel free to share your screen or...
Yes, please, Flavia, I would like to share the screen.
Yeah, feel free to do it.
And while Mahi is showing her screen, I just have to say, for those of you who don't know exactly what's happening, Mahi and Bia are going to start with a more Latin American perspective, and then we'll have Ramon Gil-Garcia joining us in probably 15 minutes, 30 minutes maybe. As I told you before, from the beginning he was concerned. He wanted us to change the time of our seminar here, and I said no, we'll keep it because we have a lot to discuss with these girls prior to including Ramon in our talk. All right, so we'll start with them, and then he will join us as soon as he's free from the meeting that he's having right now.
Thank you, Alexandre, for complimenting.
Mahi and Bia, as we usually say here, the floor is yours. Virtual floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Flavio. Thank you, Alexandre, by the invitation. And, well, it's a very big pleasure to be here in this first research seminar that I remember that years ago we started to talk about in Lakais and between some Brazilian researchers and Latin American researchers, that it would be a nice opportunity to do this kind of work. And now the pandemic period opened this big window to do that. So I'm very glad to be here. And well, I just want to be very quickly here. I don't want to take so much time here. I just want to introduce myself. Well, as you can see, my name is Marie. Beatriz is our other inviter. And Ramon is coming in the next few minutes. And well, what we are doing since a long time is working in digital government, or sometimes many people call electronic government. And this area, research area, is came in the last few years. I would say that 10, 20 last few years, very big research area, and it's increasing a lot in the increasing a lot the numbers of conference and journals specific from digital government. And so we can see how huge is this area and how it's increasing the last few years. And something that is like, I have been in Albany in the CTG, the Center of Technology and Government, in 2012. I think I was one of the first Brazilians that have been there, and I was visiting research for, I think, 6 months. I was there, around there, and then I met these people that are focused on digital government and research in digital government, and not only research, but also how they are applying and how they work together with practitioners. So academic and practitioners and government together working in projects and research at the same time. So this gives me an opportunity to think that we could do something similar, adapting, of course, our Brazilian context, but we can do something similar in Brazil. And since that period, many Brazilian PhD students, researchers have been there as I did in research in Albany and met these people, and not only in Albany, but also in some conference that this group of people that Albany, that CTG makes. I would say that CTG is a kind of hub in digital government, because several people from around the world have been staying there for even a month or 2 months, just working with CTG people, and they make this as a huge networking. So as you can, I will not read everything that is here. You can see that on the website. I will send this slides to Alexandre so he can upload on Moodle. But you can see that the CTG is the Center of Technology and Government that is located at the State University of New York in Albany. Because Albany, I don't know if everybody knows, Albany is the capital of the state of New York, and the State University of New York has several campuses, and one is located in Albany, in the capital, and it's close to New York City, like 135 miles around that, so it's not so far. And Albany has, bring some pictures here just to show it's a quite old city, and it's a mix of old city and very contemporary. So here you have the university campus, and this is the main city major. Anyway, and what else? And also something that is characteristic of CTG is that, as I said, as a hub, they have many, I would say, projects that try to bring people from all around the world. And one of the projects that was engaged in 2012, and that from that period it gets a very huge number of researchers around the world are engaged on this consortium. This is the Smart Government Research Practice Consortium. We just call it the consortium the Smart City Consortium. And the Smart City Consortium is getting a lot of researchers around the world who are engaged in smart city. And we, in most of the main conference in digital government, we have a workshop that we present our projects and try to meet those new members that were not that are engaging on the consortium. And CTG is the hub of this consortium. They build that and make that very important network connections between researchers. And just to give an example, once time, I think, we were talking about Albert, Alexandre was talking about Albert, and he made contact with, he's a member of this consortium, and he once, a long time ago, I think 5 years ago, he called me, do you know somebody from São Paulo that who be interested in make some research together with, we have the Erasmus resources from Europe, blah, 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 and must be somebody from São Paulo. So I called Maria Alexandra to, in that moment I was in Porto Alegre, so I was at PUC, so in that moment I couldn't be the Brazilian coordinator, so Maria Alexandra was the coordinator of this international project. So it came from, the contact starts from, I met Albert in that moment by this consortium, and this consortium brings another connections and so on. So I think this is one of the idea that really work. Okay, so and make some and Beatriz is another member. Sorry, Beatriz, I didn't mention that.
It's okay. Okay.
But Beatriz is also another member, and she will present something in a short minute. If I stop to talk, so I will let her talk.
No, it's okay.
One of the projects that is part from this consortium. So, wow, and just this is my last slide. I can't. I was just to tell you that those who are not usually know about digital government, that we have several international conferences. I just put here some those that I consider the most important, and most of these people who are engaged in digital government usually goes on this conference. So the IFIP Gov, I don't know exactly, well, as you can imagine, this year is totally confused. So all these conferences went online this year. And I don't know, I don't think that IFIP is already decided where it's going to be, the IFIP Gov. But well, this is they joined IFIP Gov with Sedane a few years ago. And now, so there are two conferences together. And the ICGov that we still don't have a date, but probably will be September and October. I hope in Greece, presentially. So we are working on that. I will be one of the PC chair of this ICGov. And Beatriz is involved on the DGO that already have going to be in June, and they create I think Maria Alexandra and I forgot. Tiago, sorry, Bia. And in Tiago Avila, they propose this track, digital transformation in national government, and so they are open. The calls is open. Soon the ICGov will open the calls, and so we have several of these specific conference, and most of these specific conference have frequently create special issues from this conference that publish in journals that are focused on digital government. So, well, I can see Ramon. Hi, Ramon. Arrive.
Hi, everybody.
Because I was sharing the screen, I didn't see that you are.
Hi, Ramon. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Nice to see you, Ramon. So, well, I think we can start directly with Ramon, because what we were planning, because Ramon didn't know if he could join us exactly on this time. So as we have mentioned before, so we were preparing that Beatriz present the paper that they present in ICGov, but I think we can make that put it online. I will send to Alexandre so he can put on Moodle. Okay, the paper and the presentation.
It would be good if Bia could at least for a few minutes just tell some of the students here how it is to to go and participate in projects with universities abroad and things like that. Because that will contextualize the way. I mean, you've already done a bit of that, but I think that would be good if Bia could tell us a little bit of her experience before Ramon comes in.
Okay.
No slide? No.
No slides. Just
okay.
Just talk.
Yes. First, I would like to say thank you so much for the invitation, Alexandre and people here. Nice to see you, Ramon, here. And I was there with Ramon in 2000, wow, 15. Yes. And yes, Ramon. And I work with Ramon several projects, but mainly in smart city and digital government. I have a paper I presented in ICGov recently about the framework Ramon Zapata proposed in 2015. I tested in Brazil this framework, and I have a result and presented the ICGov in Greece recently. And I have another paper with Ramon about the digital government or electronic government in Brazil, Mexico, and United States. A few years ago, I can't remember the year. And I continue to work with Ramon and change the information, because the CTG is my second family because I stayed there for almost a year, and I have a very close relationship with people there. And yes, I continue to I am a research fellow at CTD, and I continue to work with CTD. Okay, I think it's the best, the main things I can say for you.
Mahir, do you want to formally introduce Ramon to our audience here? Or we do that? I mean, he's also Latin American, or we do it the very informal way and just say,
actually, I didn't prepare. I didn't took his bio, so I don't know if you have in your hand, but I think you already sent that on Moodle, so everybody probably has seen his biography. Bio. So well, I think we have to open the section with Ramon. Ramon, thank you very much. Accept to coming. I know everybody is full of work. I'm sure that you also on this live that we are everybody doing everything. But I think it's quite important to have an opportunity to a Latin American researcher that is working in the U.S. and he has this opportunity to be recognized in all the world as a digital government researcher. So I'm very glad to have you here, and thank you very much, Frank.
No, thank you, Marianne, Gia, and Alexandra, for the invitation. I really appreciate it. It's a pleasure, to be able to be here with all of you. And actually, what Marianne was explaining before is that I had another meeting before this meeting. It was a faculty meeting for a tenure and promotion case, so I couldn't, get out, that early. But at least I was able to get, earlier than I was expecting, and so I am really glad that we are here. So I have a question. We can go directly to your questions about the two articles that we, read for today, or I was just thinking now that we were talking about more in general, that I have a brief presentation which is more general about what I do, and I use it, for a doctoral seminar, just a couple of weeks ago. So maybe it would be useful, to start with that. I think it's not more than, maybe 10 minutes, and then after that we can open for questions and comments about the two articles. Would that make sense?
Oh, Ramon, I think that's a good idea, because some of the people that are here, can you hear me? Some of the people that are here, the students, they have access to the material that we include for them before, but there are many researchers from other Latin American countries that just join us for the presentations, so they may not have had access to these papers specifically. So it would be good if you could at least throw something at them so that we can start the debate right after. Yeah.
Okay, sounds very good. So as I told you, this was for something else. But I think it is good because it's very short, and it kind of represents my main research interest and my research agenda and kind of my approach, to research. So I think that this could be useful. So basically, my main interest, as some of you may already know, is in the role of information and technology in technology in the public sector, and not only in government specifically in terms of organizations, but also in the public policy process. And so some of the keywords, as you can see here, basically digital government, smart cities, digital divide, open government, social media, data analytics, mobile government, emerging technologies. So these are several of the many topics that I have been studying now for about 17 years. So if we think about my research, I can say that it focuses on the interactions and influences of information and communication technologies and new managerial practices on the way government works and interacts with citizens, businesses, and other stakeholders. What several scholars now call digital government. So if you remember, basically it was computing government, and then at some point electronic government, and then for some people it's digital government, digital governance, but basically it's the study of information and technology in the public sector. However, my conceptualization of digital government is comprehensive and integrative, including a number of variables and aspects from multiple theories and different disciplinary traditions, and I'm going to talk very briefly, about this approach. And so basically, I view digital governance as a complex socio-technical phenomenon with both supply and demand components, and this is very related to the paper, one of the papers that we're going to be talking about today. So in terms of the research agenda, very general, I consider I have been working, for about 15 years in most of the topics that I call mature topics. So basically, interorganizational collaboration and information sharing, digital government success, integrative theoretical approaches to the study of digital government, different conceptualizations and approaches to the digital divide, using partial least squares to study digital government, which is a social equation modeling technique that was rarely used when I first used it in 2005. Now is used in information systems in general, in particular with digital government too. And then multi-method research strategies. I am all in favor of using multiple methods, for a research project. And then relatively new topics. And I say relatively new because they are actually not new. I have been working in some of these topics for 10 years, a little bit less than 10 years. So smart cities and smart governments, open government, open data, social media and mobile government, big data analytics and visualizations, and more recently, some emerging technologies like blockchain, artificial intelligence, and sensors. So just to give you an idea, of all the different things that I am interested in, but always, as I said before, I try to study these different technologies or these different uses of data in this comprehensive manner, really trying to pay attention not only to the technological artifacts, but also to the organizational and institutional characteristics around those artifacts. So if we think about the theoretical approach, these are kind of my ideal characteristics of models. So I like integrative models, comprehensive approaches in which we have many different variables and try to understand not only one single variable in terms of its effect on a dependent variable, but actually all the different relationships across the different variables. And then also I like to study multidimensional phenomena and approaches. So basically try to understand things not as a very narrow concept, but actually as something that could be very, very rich and very complex. So just to give an example, we have a paper in 2015 that was about smart cities. And actually, it was a way to conceptualize smart cities looking at, if I remember correctly, maybe 12 different dimensions. So that's kind of the idea. Then, of course, nonlinear relationships, because sometimes, the relationships between variables is nonlinear. So I want to capture, those nonlinearities. Dynamic and emergent phenomena. Context and systems thinking in theories, and actually we have also a few papers in which we propose that using systems thinking could be a good way to better understand information systems and other technology-related topics in government. Process-oriented research, so basically as opposed to variance-oriented research, although I do both. So variance-oriented research, as you may know, is what you do normally with statistics, in which you are looking at a specific variable, and then you want to know what is the effect of other variables, called independent variables, into that single variable. But then the only thing that you get at the end is to know if the relationship is statistically significant. But then it's not easy to then know why or how. And so process-oriented research can help you to understand how and why some of these variables are important. And also, if you use mixed methods or multiple method strategies, basically you can combine, both types of approaches, variance-based and process-oriented research.
Ramon?
And then that is going to...
No, I wanted to just sorry for interrupting you. I just wanted to check if your microphone is well connected, because it's making a lot of popping noises, and we believe it's there. If it's still, I mean, we can still hear you, but the sound is not clear. So maybe just check again to see if it gets any better.
Okay, let me see.
It could be that it was just, just say anything.
Yeah, maybe it's just the connection, but is that any better?
No, but again, okay, it was only if you could do anything, right? If you can't, don't worry. It's I mean, we can hear you perfectly. It's just that there is some noise in the back.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm very sorry about that.
Okay, no worries. So I mean, the content is perfect. Okay, go on.
Okay, so basically, when you look at all this together, you are going to get a holistical way of looking at problems. So, and also, just to add to that, applied research is also very important. A clear connection to practice, that's very important for me. So I always try to have some practical recommendations or implications at the end of the paper, in this case, when we're talking about an article. And then just the types of theories. So, of course, theories from public administration, information science, structuration theories, institutional theories, all these are just examples of some of the theories that have this type of characteristics. There's, just to give you examples, this is the type of models, that's what I call comprehensive models. So they are not just taking one variable and trying to test the relationship with another variable. They are actually taking many variables at the same time and trying to see which of them are more or less important. So basically, one of them is data envelope analysis that we have done, with some colleagues in the past. Figure 1 is a conceptual model about smart cities. Then the one in the middle, top, is one system dynamics model. The one in the lower middle is a PLS, partial least squares model. And then the one to the right is basically a social network analysis. And of course, I don't consider myself expert in all of these. probably from these, probably more impartial least squares and statistics in general. But I collaborate with a lot of colleagues that are experts in some of these other methodologies, and I just think that it's important that we start thinking about, holistically about some of these phenomena. So in terms of methods, as I said before, I am a fan of mixed method research strategies. I have used particularly sequential explanatory, which is start with quantitative and then go to qualitative, and triangulation, which is basically use two or more different methods for the same study, and then compare the results. And then, as you can see, I also do a lot of qualitative research and quantitative analysis with very different techniques, particularly, statistical techniques. So again, just to give you a sense, here are some of my recent projects in which I am involved. So the first one is about digital divide and in rural emergency in rural areas, particularly emergency preparedness in response. The second one is about the role of public libraries in smart cities or smart communities. And then the next one is doing data analytics, in this case specifically about water quality for one of the New York State departments, at the state level. Then we also have worked with the United Arab Emirates, helping them to create a digital urban maturity model and then test that first into the Emirates and then with the ministries at the federal level. And then working with other colleagues from Mexico, we also are actually finishing a project that is about public value through state government portals and is basically trying to understand what public value means in this case for different users. And then finally, I have been working with a colleague from Australia in understand how web portals can be seen as new government actors, actually institutional actors. And this was more for the students at my university, but basically this is I think a good introduction.
Okay, while you are trying to show the questions that we already have there on Menti, Flavio, I have one question. I was just reviewing a paper earlier this week, Ramon, in which the authors, their finding was basically that governments, when they, and it was mainly on open data, but they were mainly considering the fact that some governments were only there because of the technology. They were really focused, or people in government thought that they would succeed if they had more technology, right? And others had this perspective that they would succeed if they could engage people in it. So basically, they were seeing these two, and I found that really interesting because in fact, when we see IBM coining the smart cities, the global expression of a few years back or many years back, they were really, sort of imposing their technology on us or selling technology. But nowadays we see smart cities and even what governments can do as much more as sharing more with the citizens. How do you think that we should go about this smart cities movement in Latin America? Do you think that technology is the most important factor there, or you think that how do you put those things in perspective? People and technology.
Yeah, so what to think about that, and this is part of at least one of the papers that was for today, is basically thinking about what is success. So how can we measure success? And I think that is going to help us to then decide what is more important for success. So, for example, in terms of smart cities, one thing that we have proposed in other papers is that we need to think about success as the ultimate impact. So if the ultimate impact is, for example, better quality of life, or the fact that people has to invest less time in transportation, or the fact that they can do their services very easily online, things like that, then I think that we can assess in a better way the importance of the different elements. And I think you are right, Alexandre. So I think that technology, I think in general, is going to still be important, but the relative importance of technology is going to be also related to how technology is going to interact with other elements. So how technology is going to interact with the organizational characteristics, how technology is going to interact with institutional arrangements, including laws and regulations. And as you said, basically whether people are going to use the technology or the information. And I think that's one of the lessons, I would say, from this idea of thinking about, in a more comprehensive way, about digital government success. Because basically that's the idea. You can have a very good technology, you can have excellent services, but if people do not find them useful and if they don't use them, then basically we can still think there is a failure. And you can even have kind of awards about your smart city strategy because it's very good, but it's very good maybe just on the supply side. But what about the demand side? What about taking into consideration, like in many of our countries, that many people do not have internet access, or that people have internet access not only with their phones? And so we need to start thinking about that. We start thinking about what is success. When we think about smart city success or digital government success, what exactly we mean by that? And therefore, what are some of the elements that we need to take into consideration for us to actually be successful?
Only a matter of discussing efficiency and effectiveness, right? Doing right, but also, or more than that, doing the right thing.
Exactly.
And now that you mentioned that, Ramon, already.
Exactly. Now that you mentioned that, that's also very important. Sometimes people not only think about technology, but also think about efficiency as the main goal of technological projects. And we have seen that in the past, and we are seeing that now more in the smart cities. That basically we want the smart city initiatives because we want to become more efficient and we want to have some savings. Well, the reality is that government is not only about that. It is okay, it's good to have an efficient government, but government is also about participation, about transparency, about effectiveness, about other things that we expect from governments. And so I think it's also important that we start thinking about that. That technology is not only a way to make government more efficient or to be able to save some money when we are facing a crisis, but it's also a way to enable other important characteristics of government and how governments can provide public value to the citizens.
Can I make one question? So I think it's an extension of what you have been saying. And when we think about digital government, normally there is a topic that every time comes to my mind, that's inequality. So how can we deal with the inequality in the cities? Because here in Brazil, at least, we have this very big difference between poor and rich people and the way how they use technology for different purpose. And do you have any comment on that? Or what is the idea, what is the impression that you have from the research that you've been doing?
Yes, thank you, Flavio. No, I agree with you. And actually, one of the things that is important is that sometimes technology is actually, instead of being used to close those gaps, actually is producing or exacerbating those gaps. And for example, just let me give you an example. We are talking about new services and new online services. Many times we are just looking at the channel that we are going to deliver the service. So basically, we are thinking about mobile application. We are thinking about a specific website. When we start thinking about people that do not have access, to internet or to a computer that is good enough to do this type of transactions or both, then basically we are making the problem worse instead of helping people. So one of the things that we proposed at some point, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, is that you can focus on the back office. So basically, if your investment in technology focuses on the back office, it is better because basically everybody is going to be in some way, has some benefits. So even if they don't use a computer, even if they don't use a mobile phone, but if they just want to go to the office and make the process or the service, get the service, but basically now it takes, let's say, instead of 2 hours that it took before, now it's just half an hour, that's a benefit for everybody. So that could be one option. Another option, and this is an option that VIA explored, at some point, is using all technologies. Because sometimes all technologies are not bad. Sometimes all technologies are very good. And actually, in certain conditions, all technologies are even better than new technologies. So text messages, for example, are very powerful, when you have a population that do not have smartphones, in general. So I think that there are always alternatives. I think the most important thing to consider or to understand is that technologies are not neutral, or at least the way that we use technologies is not neutral. So basically, decisions have to be made in terms of how to use technologies and always take into consideration the unintended consequences. And I think that when we think more in general about technology, it has not been easy for people to understand that idea of unintended consequences. Because many times we just think about the actual goals of the project, the actual goals of the initiative, and we said, well, we are trying to do X. So if the initiative is able to do X, then we are successful. Well, it depends, because maybe we are doing X, but at the same time we are affecting, other people. We are creating a new problem, and so we just need to be careful. I think one of the advantages now of artificial intelligence is that it is helping everybody, or at least more people, to understand unintended consequences. Because I think with other technologies, it was kind of difficult to imagine, unless you have a specific example. But I think with artificial intelligence, it's very clear that either because the algorithm or because of the data or because of the way that you are using, or all three of them, you are producing biases. And you are affecting people that before was not affected, but now because the decision is automated, they might be affected greatly. So I think that we just need to be careful also with that. So again, just think about, success more in general, and also consider unintended consequences in addition to your intended goals.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you very much for the answer. It was really good. So Aurora, do you want to make a question?
Yeah. I want to. Hello, Ramon. Nice to see
Hi,
you.
Aurora.
Hey.
Nice to see you too.
I have a question. Is just because in our Latin American countries, we are living in a process that the smart city concept is getting popular. I mean, most countries want to do it, but the phenomenon is that some of those projects are led by IT companies, and they want to isolate places and say, okay, we are successful here, and because we could develop this little space where everything works, and then they declare that this is a big advance for that. So how we could try to change this trend and try to include all actors that are necessary for finding a solution that helps everybody in the city or in the country. Because now, like in Chile, we have 3 projects, very big projects, but they are led basically by IT companies, and then you see this from looking at them what they are doing and said, okay, this is fine, but where is the quadruple helix working? There's no citizens, academia is not working much into it, and then how you could change this trend, how you could move toward a more diverse solution that, as you said, includes citizens and all other actors that necessarily need to be there.
Yes, no, this is a very good question. And I think in my mind, this is mostly about incentives, Aurora, because I think that part of the problem is that sometimes these big tech companies come to local governments and offer these services for free. And I think that we need to understand that that's not really for free. We need to understand that what they want is exactly as you said. They want to have an example in which they can say, oh, yeah, my technology works, and then they are going to make a lot of money with that. The problem with that is that sometimes our government officials are not willing to ask for more, to actually ask for something that is useful to the city. And I think that we need to change that. And actually, I think that part of our work as academics, forming the next generation of public officials is exactly that. We need to tell them, you need to become smart consumers of technology. You need to ask the right questions. You need to put the people first. You need to actually try to get technologies only when they are actually aligned with your goals. So basically, if you have a plan, for the next 5 years, and that plan doesn't include, just to say something, sensors in transportation, but suddenly somebody comes to you and say, oh, this is very important, this is very cool, this is a kind of edge technology, and so you do it, well, something is wrong there, because that was not your plan. That was not something that you thought was important for your city. And you are just doing it because it's free, or because you think that it's cool to have it, or because of political reasons sometimes. And so I think that we need to be careful, with those decisions. I think that government officials have the advantage that they can become the center of these networks of actors, and they need to kind of take the opportunity. They need to actually become leaders, and they actually need to push for the involvement of other actors. So you are right. The quantum helix model, for example, will tell you that in addition to government in a private company, you at least should have a university or research center and people. Basically non-profits. People in some way telling you what they need in the city. And so I think it's that. I think it's a matter of people realizing first that things are not free, and second that they don't have to accept those initiatives if they are not actually aligned with what they are trying to do in their city. That they should be producing value for the citizens, not only producing a good example for the companies for them to sell to other cities.
Yeah, thank you. I agree.
Yep. Thank you, Aurora. I think we can move to the questions from the audience. So let's say we have a bunch of questions here. Let's start with the first one. I think it's more for Bia. So Bia, could you comment on the application of this Ramon framework in Brazil? In which city was it sold, and what are the differences? Did it have to be adapted to the reality of a developing country, or did it get to a good result?
Okay, thank you. And I used the framework suggested by Ramon Gil-Garcia in 2015. Okay, I use here in Brazil, in Cascavel. Cascavel is Paraná State. Flávio knows, yes. Cascavel is about 3,000 inhabitants, is a medium size, and I apply this framework there.
300,000, you mean?
Yes,
Three.
yes,
Okay.
300,000. Yes, thank you. And I have no suggestion for change in 4 big dimensions. The 4 big dimensions is government, society, physical environment, and technology data. The main 4 dimensions have no change, and inside the dimension have 10 components, have no change, but I have a change, and inside the components have several elements, and I have a lot change there. A lot, no, several. I think about 10 change, especially for example. Transportation have I added transportation and urban transportation and metropolitan area. Another example is I have in the framework, Ramon framework, have water. I put water and it's called sanitation.
Sewage, right?
Sewage.
Yeah. Yes, and I have another education. Because just about education. I can't remember the name, but I put in the high education. Another one is about here in Brazil about oh my God, I forgot long term, a strategy for long term. Yeah, I put there. But in the end, I have just a few change only in the element inside the framework, not in the components, not in the dimension. Okay, I think this research show us is very adherent to the Brazilian context. Okay, and after Cascavel, I did the same research in Tubarão. Tubarão is in Santa Catarina. Is a city. The city is about 1,100 population. Okay, the result is the same. It's exactly the same in Cascavel. Okay. I don't know if Ramon would like to comment more about this research.
Yeah, so I would say that I totally agree with Bia. I think that in general, what we saw is that the big dimensions are still very useful, but sometimes we need to make adjustments in the actual elements because there are some elements that are more important to certain contexts than others. And so basically, I think that's what happens, in that specific example. And I think that may happen, in other situations in which we are using models that were developed for other realities, like say that a reality in the US or reality in Europe, and then we apply those to realities in Latin America or in Africa or in Asia. So I would say that something similar could be expected, that some of the main elements will still be useful and remain there, but then we need to make adjustments to the specific characteristics or elements in such a way that we can capture the most important characteristics of the new context.
Ramon, sorry, Bia, just to add this, what happened actually is not only related to the country context, like if it's a underdeveloped country or not, but it's also related to the size of the city and what kind of needs they have. I would say that it's not only related to if it's north or south, but also because even in Brazil we have these different contexts. In big cities have different needs that small cities and rural areas. So yeah, just sorry, Bia, to interrupt.
Okay. No, I
think you are totally right. I think that, and maybe this is a good way to think about context. Context is more like a series of layers. So basically, imagine a layer that is more, for example, about developing or developed countries, and then another layer that is about a specific region. Let's say Latin America. And then another layer that is about a specific country. And then another layer that is about the type of government. The type of if it is more rural, more urban, things like that. Another layer that is about the size. And so basically, almost like each characteristic could be seen as part of the context, and that's why studying things, considering the context, is so complex, because at the end, it's very difficult to generalize. There are some things that we can say, well, these things seem to be very similar, and maybe transferable, but there are many other things that are very unique to this specific circumstance, and therefore, we need to consider those specificities. But I agree.
Yeah, liar. Yeah, that's good.
So thank you very much for the answer. I think that we now have some questions that are kind of related. So do you have any comments on the Estonia case of digital government, Helsinki in Finland, and also Uruguay?
Yes, so I have not studied any of these in particular, but I can tell you, for example, like in the case of Estonia, as you may know, Tallinn was just named the most intelligent city in the world, by the Intelligent Community Forum. And so, but then the question is, and this is related to, should we use it as a reference? I would say definitely no, because again, it's the same idea. It's a different context. And in this case, it's not a matter of who put more technology in their cities. I don't know if you know also Santander in Spain at some point, they were known because of the number of sensors. They were the city with the most sensors, in the city for many different things. And again, the question is, should we follow that example? And I would say again, no. So basically, I think that when we think about smart cities and in general digital government, we need to think first about what we are trying to accomplish. And if what we are trying to accomplish is similar to what they were trying to accomplish, then yes, maybe they are a good model. Maybe you can adjust, some of the things that they did, but it still could be a good model to follow. But if the things that you are trying to accomplish as a city and your context is so different that it's not even comparable to, let's say, Estonia, then I would say, no, we shouldn't do that. We always need to first think about what we are trying to accomplish. What is our goal by introducing smart technologies or smart city initiative more in general, and then we can make a decision about what is better. So just in a similar topic, one of the things that we have criticized for a long time now is how people do benchmarkings and rankings based on outputs only. And of course, when you do that, basically you always have the same countries, because they are doing good in education, in income, in all this. So you always have the same countries, United States, Canada, and a lot of countries from Europe. And so one of the things that we propose at some time, and this is the paper that I was talking about with data envelope analysis, is why not to measure the effort? Why not to measure where you were and where you were able to get? And in that way, it's much more fair for everybody, because there are countries that are really starting at the very bottom, but they are doing a great effort, and they are using technology in a very creative way, and they are able to do a lot of good things. And so that's also something to keep in mind. On one hand, when we are talking about a specific initiative and a specific city, have your own goals instead of trying to just follow whoever they say is the best. But on the other hand, if we are talking about trying to have some type of comparison, some type of ranking, then try to be fair. Try to consider not only what they already have, which in rich countries is a lot, but also how much effort they are putting into becoming smarter, let's put it that way. And therefore, we need to also put some value on that.
I just have a small comment. I think this is related to what Aurora said about the suppliers, IT suppliers, and many times these ranks and what is priority of the city comes from the solution of the supplier. So the supplier has a solution for mobility, so many times this became a priority of the city. And so I think we can connect what Ramon said and what Aurora just said before about this relation between suppliers, IT suppliers, and what is the rank and methodology of these many ranks that we have in smart cities.
Well, thank you very much for the answer. I think I agree with you, and I think that this is somehow linked and connected with what you said on the previous question. So we are talking about different layers, and you should not take one particular case as a full reference for your context. Otherwise, you might find some blind spot or some problems that make a terrible mistake for different situations or perspective. Okay, so I think that
it's probably a matter of first deciding on what your problem is and then looking for the solution, right? And not, you always think of vendors. They're always telling you, I have a solution for you. And you say, but do you know what my problem is?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, so we have another interesting question. So I will just move for this one because it might be of interest of other people from the audience. Do you know anything about machine learning applied to smart cities?
Yes. So basically, machine learning, as many of you may know, is an artificial intelligence technique that uses basically statistics, but also automated learning, to help to make decisions. So one thing that we need to consider when using any type of artificial intelligence to make decisions in government is what is the type of decision. So let me give you examples. If the decision, for example, is that we have sensors and that they are kind of helping us to understand patterns of flooding, and so basically they can be automated. Basically the sensors, when they feel that the water level of a river is over a certain limit, automatically can let us know that something needs to be done. And I think that's okay. So that would be one of a more technical decision in which sensors could be very useful. But then when we think about other decisions that government make, let's say, for example, to whom we are going to give a specific social program, like if we are helping them with scholarship for their kids or with breakfast, free breakfast in the morning, things like that, then the question is very different. Because one of the problems with machine learning and any other artificial intelligence technique is that they use the data that we already have. So if we were biased, and this is something common in the US, if you were biased in terms of helping less people that are in minority groups, then the machine or the algorithm is going to learn that. So basically, it's going to continue doing that. And this is related to social programs, could be related to criminal justice system, sentencing, for example, could be related to hiring people or not hiring people. So could be related to many things. So I think that we need to be careful. I know that our system is not perfect. I know that many times decisions are made based on politics, but still, the fact that they can at least be contested is good, because we can at least question why they are making those decisions. I think part of the problem with using machine learning and other artificial intelligence techniques is that people think that they are objective, because they are using numbers, they are using statistics, so they should be objective. So it will be very difficult to question them. And actually, as you may also know, some of these techniques like deep learning, they are not easy to audit. So sometimes we don't even know how the decision was made. And so in terms of accountability, for government, this is really bad. And so we just need to be careful. I think it's useful. I think it could be useful as an aid, for government decision makers. But I think that when we decide for the algorithm to make the decision automatically, we need to make sure that they are decisions that are either rather simple or technical, or that they don't have, again, unintended consequences on people that maybe, greatly damage, in their interest or in their integrity or just discrimination in general.
Yeah, I think that with Mahi and Bia, do you want to make any comment?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's okay.
Yeah, so one thing that we should keep in mind as well, Ramon, is that when we talk about responsible AI, right? Because maybe this might have effect as well, different perspective of the society and the use of historical data for predicting or making decisions. This might be a very big problem. Yeah, so thank you very much for the answer. We have a lot of other questions. I would just take the first one. In a country where corruption in the public area is a problem that feeds inefficiency as a way of creating opportunities, do you think that it can be a variable to be considered in your implementation of the model of digital government success?
I think so. I think that it depends how we think about corruption, because I think corruption also could happen at very different levels. But I think so. I think that in general, it could be part of the context. So there are some countries in which corruption, as you are rightly saying, is part of a way that government works. Of course, we don't always like it, but we know that sometimes it's the only way that we can get, a specific service, for example. And so I think it depends. So it could be at the general level of the context, but also it could be depending on where the corruption is. Because sometimes we just think about this day-to-day corruption, that, I need to get a service, so I need to pay a bribe, to get the service, things like that. But that's more at the adoption level. So when we think about this model, implementation adoption model, basically that's more at the adoption level. However, remember that also information technology projects are normally very big. They are always very expensive. And in some cases, they could also lead to corruption. Because basically, and this is not only in our countries, just like 5 years ago, the government of California, the CIO actually was charged because basically one company offered a bribe to select their system because it was a multi-million, contract. And so I think that basically we can also think about corruption in this way. It's not only the day-to-day corruption at the adoption level, but it could also be a more government, structural corruption at the implementation level, in which they decide on certain systems because they have bribes or other pressures from specific companies. So yes, so I would say that we can try to include corruption in some way if we have data. Remember that part of the problem with corruption is that it's very difficult to have data. Sometimes people have some estimates, but still it's very difficult to have data about corruption.
That's a very interesting comment. I'm not sure if you're gonna find the data from the corruption, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So next question is about the feasibility of using e-government medium of attack to government system here in Brazil. How the people will see the security in this area and the possibility to expose your personal data or have to stop abruptly. Yeah, so it might be related with the data, the personal data from the community to e-government.
Oh, can I talk about?
Yeah, for sure.
Yes. Hi, Ramon. My name is Luis Cesar. I'm from Brazil, and I was asking about feasibility of using e-government. I'm probably you know that we have some attacks, hacker attacks here in Brazil and the government systems. And we have a lot of problems here. Even I'm working at a university, and we have to stop all of service to people. And I think about the feasibility of use of e-government, how people will see the credibility of the disposal of data, or maybe what we have now, all the services was stopped abruptly. What do you think about it?
Yeah, this is a very good question, Cesar. I can see it in two different ways. So one of them is more about cybersecurity. So basically, how well we can protect the systems in such a way that basically we can trust in the systems and we don't have this type of problems that you were describing. And the reality is that it's not easy. The reality is that even the Pentagon, again, one example from the United States, maybe again the same 5 years ago, 7 years ago, something like that, they were hacked. So basically, even when you are thinking about some of the best ways to secure systems and data, still there is no single solution. So now thinking about that, here is my second reflection. Think about contingency planning. Think about not only what or how we can protect the systems the best we can, but also be open to the fact that we may not be able to protect them. And one of the things that is interesting, and now, as you may know, some countries in Europe are trying to do that, is multi-channel strategies. Because in that way, if for some reason you have to interrupt the service in the online environment, you can still provide the service in other channels. And I think that could be also something to keep in mind. I know that it's very expensive. I know that not everybody can, do that, can afford that. But still, I think we need to start thinking about both. I think we need to start thinking about improving our cybersecurity, but also thinking about, and what if at the end it doesn't work? What if at the end we are still attacked and we need to interrupt the services? What are our other options that we may have in such a way that we are better prepared for the situation?
Thank you, Ramon.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, so I think we can move to the next question. So a smart city would be a very dangerous place governed by an authoritarian government. Is there some concern about it?
Yeah, I think there are many concerns about that. So remember, 1984 was a book written many, many years ago. And at that point, we didn't have the technology to actually do that. Now we have. And so I think that we just need to be very careful. Again, technology, we can think about technology as an artifact. But once we start using technology, it's not neutral. We can use it for good or for bad. We can use it to help people, but also to control people. We can use it for many things. And now when we think about all these different new technologies, that we are using sensors for everything, that we can use facial recognition, that we can use, so many things. As you see, basically we have a set of tools that could be used for anti-democracy, basically, And so I think that, yes, I think that all of us as, citizens of the world, I think that we need to be careful about that, be careful in terms of what we accept, what we think is acceptable, because the fact that it's technically feasible doesn't mean that it's socially desirable. And so there are many technologies that when you put them in certain contexts, we don't want them. They could be beautiful technologies, they could be very powerful technologies, but in certain contexts, we don't want them because they are against our privacy. They are against our freedom. They are against, many things that we value, as citizens. So I think we just need to be careful with that. And definitely, there are many things now that could be used against, citizens instead of trying to help citizens having a better life.
Just one problem with respect to that, Ramon, I believe, is that many of these technologies, they come packed in a nice way, right? That there's always something sweet about it before we get the sour. When we are turned into, and in many of these situations in which we are turned into the products instead of the customers or the citizens, that's the case. Someone has to convince us to use something, and they will have to show some interesting feature, some interesting aspect of that technology. But we always have to think how that would evolve in the long run, or how that could evolve in the long run if we were, for example, in a case of governments, in a government that is not democratic. And we can also see very, very easily that going from full democracy to something completely weird is just a matter of choosing the wrong guy once, sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We're experiencing that in many parts of the world right now, and we notice how weak our democracy really is when we just have the wrong people in power. So we definitely, that's definitely a very, very good warning. We should think of all that we lose when we're gaining something.
Yes, and also, in addition to that, also think about what is the role of government, because I think government could be seen as a user, certainly. So government is a user of all these technologies, but government is also the regulator. Or government can also help to use these technologies in other sectors of society in a better way. And so one of the things that is interesting, but at the same time sad, is that in some countries, including the United States, the power that have some private companies in terms of, for example, getting all our data and then changing the terms and conditions every time that they want, and you just need to say accept, because otherwise you don't receive the service. That's also another way to have control. So it doesn't even need to come from government. Many of the big companies, Google, Facebook, all of them, they have tons of information from us, and it's rarely that we actually read the terms and conditions. And in part, it is not also because we are lazy or that we don't care. It's also because there are no options. So basically, the option is to say yes, or the option is to say, well, I'm not going to use this service anymore. And so I think that that's also something to keep in mind. What would be the role of government in the future in such a way that we have options? So as you may know, now in Europe, they have options instead of let being alone, they call it. So basically that companies cannot keep their data if they don't want it. And so basically, we need to start thinking about legal options like that for the future. Because I think you are right. I think technologies are going to keep coming, and we are going to keep adopting them. So we just need to be careful in which instances we decide to adopt them, and how we can protect ourselves, and if we are public officials, our citizens in those instances, because we don't know. And I agree with you, Alexander. We don't know who is going to come next. So we don't know if now they are not using some of these data they have from us just because they are good people. But we don't know if the next person who is going to have control of government is going to be also a good person. And so I think that in this case, everything should be established, taking for granted that the next person may try to use this information against us. So just something to think more about in terms of the role of government in the future.
Okay, really good. I think that I'm not sure if Renato wants to mention the data protection law somehow, because there are some discussions on the chat. No.
Not escaped us. No, she mentioned, we have this new law in Brazil that maybe, well, at least tries to protect our data, try to prevent bad use of good information. But I think that there is still a lot of debate even about the effectiveness of these kinds of laws. I think we have to go much beyond that. But anyway, Renata is shy today. She doesn't want to talk, I guess.
Yeah, Ramon, if you want to comment a little bit, because I'm quite sure that US and also Europe, they also have some data protection law about the citizens' rights. Do you have any comments on that? Or
yes and no, Flavio. So I think that comparing to Europe, I think that we have nothing. I think that particularly in terms of protection against private companies, the US is really lagging behind. So in terms of protection from government, it's a little bit better, but in terms of protection from private companies, no. So it's very similar, to basically any other private service, that you need to accept all and every term and condition for you to be able to get the service. And there are almost no limits to that. So they could be telling you explicitly that they are going to sell your information, that they are going to use their information against you for you to buy specific things, to vote for specific people, and still, there is no control, no regulation on that. And so they are trying to do something about it. I don't know if they are going to be able to do it in the next years, but basically at this point, no. I would say that at this point, we are in a really difficult situation in terms of protection from any type of use of our data, particularly in terms of private companies that now feel that they own the data. So that's also something important, how to think about ownership. Because sometimes we said, well, you get my data because of the type of service that you are providing to me, but that doesn't mean that you can use my data for other purposes. And I think part of the problem, and they have been talking a lot about that, is that many of these companies, particularly Google and Facebook, as you remember, they started when there was no recognition of the problem. So basically, they have a business model that now is established, and that it gives them a lot of money, and they don't want to change it. They are not willing to change it. They are willing to put a lot of money into lobbying for no regulations in terms of data protection. So that's something to keep in mind.
May I comment a little bit on this topic? My name is Violeta. I'm professor at School of Arts and Information Systems course at USP. And we are working on a project, and we're studying the use of blockchain for health data distribution. And actually, we are just facing this problem with this distribution of data and the ownership of data. Who is the ownership of the data? And for example, if I want my data deleted, how can I do that? Actually, we found out that we cannot, because the producers of the data, they can just say that they are deleting, but you never know. Yes. So I think the main problem that we're facing right now for using specifically in the health sector is this problem of ownership, because each company have their own patterns and standards for sharing data, and how to keep this protection of the data is still something that has to be developed. Yeah, that's a very big problem, I think. Yeah. That's. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I have an additional comment about another important issue related to security data. Is especially in Brazil, many people doesn't aware about all the data that they open and they inside in the systems, and even Facebook, Google Maps, and so on. So and they don't care actually, and because okay, I have the service. What's the problem that I have? My data open, I don't mind. So probably I think this is very related to the education level. When we see that most of the people that don't have a very high education level, they are more worried about sweet water, other things, basic things, and not about if they have or not their own data's security, if their data are secure or not. So they have basic worries, basic issues to be worried, much more than related to their personal data. And so, and I think these big companies, they work with that, they know that, people are, they have lack of service, lack of everything. So they are open to use in free. Even many times they don't care if there is no free lunch. We know that there is no free lunch, but most of the people doesn't know and they don't care about that. That's my point.
Yeah, actually, let me add to that, because I don't know if you have heard the concept of surveillance capitalism, but basically it's a way for people to start realizing what is actually happening. So basically, they have studied how private companies are using our data to literally force us to buy things that we don't need. And so basically, it's not anymore this general advertisement, commercials in the TV, things like that. They are targeted, to a specific you or people like you, because they have a lot of data to do that. And so I think that's part of the problem, that people don't realize that this is happening, It's very difficult sometimes for individuals to recognize that they, for example, buy something without actually wanting to buy it. And so I think that's part of the situation, that is very difficult to explain sometimes, but this is actually what is happening. So this is a way of controlling people too, because it's not only about buying specific products, but it could be also about inputting on people specific ideologies, specific ways of dealing with problems, even what you just mentioned, Marianne. So basically, they can also say, it doesn't matter if you sell your data, it's good. And so you are getting, benefits and all that. So it becomes kind of a propaganda, in terms of before, it was mostly political. We're talking about propaganda, it was mostly political, but now it's not. Now it's corporate. And that's why they call it surveillance capitalism, because now these big companies are using all this data about us to control our patterns of behavior. And so I think that's just something also to keep in mind,
Ramon, it reminds me of something real. We can do in some way analogy with social credit in China, that the government is controlling, the citizens by what they do, what they think, and so on. And but in this case, we are controlled by the big companies and not by the government. So, it's just coming in mind right now that we could do this kind of analogy. I don't know if you agree, but it seems like they do the same.
I think so. And as we were saying before, the only difference is that instead of talking about the government, we are talking about these huge corporations that are not even national, in a sense that they don't have limits in a single country, but they are actually multinationals, sharing data across, different national boundaries, and using data from all over the world to be able to affect our behavior.
But in the same that is happening in China, there are many Chinese that I don't care that the government use these social credits, because they give me I have benefits. I receive many benefits, so I don't care. That's okay for me. So it seems like the same, that I don't care that Facebook and Google knows about me much more than me knows about me. that's many times happened. And I don't care, because it's so convenient to me that I receive the things on the phone, that they, the propaganda and whatever, so it's useful.
I think that's the question, Marianne. I think the question is exactly that for all of us. When we say, I don't care, is that something that we actually think by ourselves? Or is that something that they are pushing into us because that's convenient for them? And so I think that it's just that, it's just thinking. And I know that it sounds, a little bit futuristic and kind of, again, with this whole idea of 1984. But I think that's the case. Actually, they have psychologists, particularly Facebook and Google, again, they have a lot of psychologists working for them, and particularly designing ways to change people's behavior. And so I think that is something interesting. So if some of you are interested in knowing more about the topic, Google that, surveillance capitalism. And one of the main people talking about this, I think, is one professor from Harvard, Pippa Norris. But there are others, that are also talking about it. But it's very interesting, because the idea is exactly that you don't even notice what they are doing because it's unconscious. So basically, you are just following certain leads that they give you through social media or through other means, and then you are convinced that that's your decision.
Ramon, you have already, sorry, Violeta, just very quickly here. I was just thinking, Ramon has already mentioned Orwell a couple of times, but I think that possibly we should even be more concerned about a Brave New World's direction, direction of, they give us all the toys and we are happy and we don't question. It is also, there's also a lot of danger there, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, go on,
we are the people that we are aware of that. We know, even we allow, I know when I use Google Maps that what they do with my data. I'm aware of that. I am worried about the people who don't have any idea about that. In Brazil, in developing countries, is most of the people. And
you're aware, but you have to accept it. We only have the choice of accepting, and we can't even not accept it, because then we're out of society the way we put it. I understand it's still a social process, but it's just they only allow us to accept it or not to change it or to appropriate it or to say I accept it in different ways. I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say about what Marianne said about China. It's China. They don't have any option. They have to accept. So yeah, no matter if they have any notion on what is going to be about that, but they don't have option. Whether they use it or not. Yeah. So that's one difference. Yeah. Yeah. In China, they're being the surveillance is all around. I mean, they have no option.
You're right. You're completely right, Violeta. But what I mean when I said I try to compare them is that we have people that are happy with the social credits because they have because it's convenient for them and they have the service they have, so that's okay for them. That's what I'm saying about this. My analogy was related to Google, that Facebook, whatever, that we are happy with them because they give me a lot of service. So that's my analogy. But I agree with you that it's not a choice on them in that case.
Yeah, just that.
Okay, so I think it was a very nice discussion. Yeah, I will just propose that we do the last question and then we go for the closing part. I'll just choose randomly. So I think that okay. So I pick this one. In your study of Mexican states, did you find political disputes between states to claim benchmark status?
Oh yeah. So not in this study, because this study was using secondary data. But we also, one of the things that we have been trying to do every year is actually producing a ranking, for the state of Mexico, for the states in Mexico. And we always have a couple of calls or emails, from people from specific states arguing, why they should be ranked higher than others. And I think this is normal, Again, these rankings only measure output. So it's just for them to have a sense of what is the effort that other states are putting into this. And of course, it's relative, because if you do nothing this year and you were, let's say, number 10, but others, they were doing a lot of things this year, you may end up being number 20. And it's not because your government services are worse. They could be exactly the same. It's just because others are now offering, better services. So I think that in general, I think people tend to do that. People tend to question, all types of evaluations, rankings, benchmarks, just because they feel that they are doing a good job. And as I said before, in many cases, they are doing a good job. It's just the fact that others may be doing an even better job. And again, just to go back to my previous point, and that doesn't mean that actually because one state is in number 1, another one is in number 15, that doesn't mean that the state in number 1 is better for their citizens than the one that is in number 15. It's just that they are providing more services, or they are using more technology, or they are doing something different that we have in the actual evaluation. So just thinking about evaluations, the other thing is, remember that evaluations have other problems. That is what they call in economics gaming the system. So basically, when you have an evaluation and they know the criteria, they are going to try to get to the criteria. They don't care about how that translates into benefits for the citizens, but they are just going to try to get to the criteria that you are going to use for them to become number 1. And so I think that also, in this type of efforts, if you are involved in any of them, we just need to be careful, to make sure that they understand what this is about. And that they are not just trying to game the system to get higher in the rankings, when in fact that doesn't reflect what they actually need in terms of data and technology for their citizens, for the type of goals, again, the type of public value that they are trying to generate for their citizens. So it could be a little bit dangerous, this competition, to become just high in the rankings.
Thank you very much, Ramon.
Thank you, Ramon. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Maria.
Bye-bye, Ramon. Bye-bye, Alexandre.
Ramon.
So thank you for the invitation, and have a nice day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you very much. Bye.
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 Thank you very much for being here again. For next week, we have Jerry Grant from Canada discussing a little of the information that he has in his book, The Value Imperative. So you're all invited, and we hope, and please invite your friends as well, other researchers, other students. We want to have this information systems group each time larger and more united. Okay, so. And then people will have to smile, right?
So you are the one who's gonna take it, or?
I will try. I always tell that everyone should try to take a picture, and then you include that in Facebook. We have to do like YouTubers do. We have to show other people that we're doing something here, right? So everyone take their own picture and then put there and tell people, well, this is what we were doing on Wednesday afternoon when other people were, probably they're all staying bored at home, right, during the pandemic. But anyway, so I will try to do mine here, but you do yours as well.